Hey everyone, we'll give everyone a few more minutes to get in before we start up the user group. So just wait another minute or so and hopefully let a few more people in. Cool, I'll get started up. Hey everyone, hope everyone's doing well. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So I'm James Montemagno. I run the SeattleMobile.net user group in Seattle and Redmond usually, but of course we're virtual now. We stream to the .net Foundation, YouTube, which is super cool. And today I'm actually going to be doing a talk on building Stream Deck plugins with C Sharp, which is something I've been investigating recently as yet like another device that I can use C Sharp and .NET on to build mobile apps, which is or not mobile apps, but sort of companion applications, which is cool. You can, of course, on YouTube, leave any comments. I can see them here. I can highlight them. Check this out. I can do that. Whoa, cool, which is nice. And I'll kind of answer questions as we go. But yeah, the cool thing is that the user group is stream live. It's recorded. So this link that you're at right now will be the same link that you can watch the presentation on later at any time, and they're all archived as well. And if people want to hang around later, more people will join. Maybe we'll do a virtual hang on Meetup. If people want to join, they can join. If not, on the Google Meet, I'll put a link on the presentation at the very end. I saw a few other user groups who are doing that, so I thought that might be a cool little addition if people want to hang out after hours. But hopefully the main presentation that I give will go maybe until 6 and then do a virtual hang after that. But I hope everyone's good. Hope everyone's healthy. And yeah, we'll get into it. So I always start every single user group exactly the same. We meet up in Seattle and Redmond, and we sort of focus on all things development, whether it's .NET development, mobile development with Xamarin, C Sharp or F Sharp, Windows development, game development, and now I guess Stream Deck development. Anything that's sort of in the mobile-esque realm with C Sharp and .NET and F Sharp. We have different topics from different speakers, so anyone can kind of join up, which is super awesome. The cool thing is that this user group also is streaming via the .NET Foundation virtual user group, which is a really cool collaboration with the .NET Foundation and the community. So I've talked about this on previous meetups, but basically what it is instead of having to join 20 or 30 different user groups on meetup.com because you want to join their virtual event, you can sign up for one, the .NET virtual user group, and you can get notified about all the different upcoming user groups that are going on all over the world. So it's a great way to engage with other communities, to see awesome content. And when you go to the .NET Foundation page under the virtual user group, you'll see all the upcoming events. You'll see a link to join today, which is completely free to join on meetup.com. And there's almost 1,000 members, which is cool. I just updated this slide because before it said 70, because I think we had just launched it, which is cool. And there's all sorts of different user groups all over the world that are having awesome online meetups all the time. And then that's cool. So you don't have to kind of clutter your meetup with user groups all over. And if you know a user group that you're attending, another one in the area, you think it might be a good idea for them to share, what they're doing with the world, which is cool because with the internet, we can share everything that we're doing with anybody. They can also submit their user group online. And that's how they get added into the list there, which is nice. Also, I wanted to talk about .NET Conf. I usually like to start all the meetups with some really cool announcements, things that are happening in the Xamarin and .NET world. But .NET Conf is coming up next month. It's actually just a month away, 26 days, 16-esque hours or so. And it's a 3-day event this year, and it's the launch of .NET 5, which is very exciting. There's going to be an awesome keynote with some ridiculously cool speakers that I can't talk about, but really awesome. There'll be some great Xamarin content there as well. And there'll be, live streaming nonstop for free. It's completely free on the internet, like every .NET Conf. And you can just go to .NETconf.net and learn more about it. And additionally, there's local events that will be done, obviously streamed virtually. I'll probably most likely sign up for one of those and try to do an event and get some other speakers from Microsoft in the community to give awesome talks. So if you have anyone that you're like, oh, I really want to see a talk, send me a ping on Twitter or send me an email. It would be cool too. So some cool announcements happening in the Xamarin ethos, I would say. First is Xamarin Forms 5 preview landed. It's all about feature stability and performance. This is really awesome. I've already installed it in a bunch of my applications. And if you come to other user groups, meetups that we've done, we've talked about new features added in different Xamarin Forms 4.x releases, usually under feature flags. So Xamarin Forms 5 is all about performance, stability, and getting all of those features to stable shipping GA, if you will. They've already been pretty stable, but kind of making sure that they're going through all of the rigorous testing and official no more feature flags. So that includes app theme, carousel, gradient brush, shapes and paths, swipe views. And a few of these are actually going to go into a different NuGet package, expander, and media element, which I'll talk about here in a second. But it's a really great release. Really excited for it going into 5.0. So feature stability and perf. Some other things I wanted to talk about was the Xamarin Community Toolkit. So this is really awesome. It's community run, backed by Microsoft and developers and teammates here. And it's sort of a bunch of different awesome behaviors, converters, extensions, and views for your application with Xamarin Forms. So here I have a short video here, but there's all sorts of goodies that you can install. So things like animation behaviors that you can attach, some shake things going on here, different slide animations that you can add. There's also some like masked behavior, so you can mask your text when you do entries. There's also obviously converters, but also lots of views. Like here's an avatar view, so a circle cut out there, range slider built in. And additionally, the expander and the media element from Xamarin Forms are going to move into this as well. So they'll have more time to bake, basically. But there's all sorts of really great controls that'll be available. And this is in a preview, I think version 1 today, that you can grab from NuGet. But there's all sorts of nice things that you can get, like these nested expanders, which are very cool. And additionally, Hacktoberfest is going on right now. And if you want to contribute to the Xamarin Community Toolkit, you'll be eligible to get some free Xamarin swag, t-shirts. There's like some Bluetooth speakers, some pens, and a bunch of cool stuff that you can get. So if you're looking and have some code sitting around that you maybe want to contribute to the Community Toolkit, definitely give that a look. And there's even a blog down there describing the whole Hacktoberfest that's going on right now. Finally, I wanted to talk about Xamarin Essentials. There's kind of a month of releases, if you will. So Xamarin Essentials 1.6 is in preview today, just like Xamarin Forms 5.0 is in preview. And it has a bunch of amazing community contributions and team contributions. So this added Mac OS support, which is fantastic, in addition to iOS, Android, UWP, Tizen, watchOS, tvOS, all the things. But it added app actions, context, haptic feedback, file picker, a media picker, screenshots as well. So I made a video of this too. So here's app actions, which are cool when you long press or right click on an icon. File picker, so you can pick files, obviously, but you can do multi-file selection, which is really nice. You can pick images, you can give it filters inside of from a single line of code, and there's multi-selection. Media picker is also very similar, but you can either pick a photo and it'll do the filters for you, or you can capture a photo by taking a photo with the camera or a video with the camera, which is really neat. And then also screenshots, so the ability to take screenshots. So nothing too crazy, but it's just a few lines of code to take a screenshot. And then contacts too, so you can do a contact picker, and you can pick people, boop, which is really neat. And yeah, just from like a line of code, which is pretty astonishing when you think about it. So there's been a lot of releases to look forward to. It's really coming along really nice. And of course at .NET Conf, you'll hear a lot more about everything happening with .NET and of course with Xamarin, which is really exciting. So if you haven't been able to try out those new releases, definitely give them a try. I've been using all of them for a while now, and I've been super loving it. Cool. That's it. That's all the announcements I have. I see everybody super excited. We got everyone tuned in, lots of comments, which is cool. So I'll just kind of get on to sort of the main talk. I don't think I have any more announcements. Let me go here. Cool. All right. Look at that transition. All right. So the main topic that I wanted to talk about tonight is building Stream Deck plugins with C#. And if you don't know what a Stream Deck is, don't worry. I will tell you all about it. It's how I live my life every single day. But specifically, it's yet another device that we can use C# and .NET with, which I think is super duper exciting. I've been using Stream Deck for a few years now as I started live streaming, but I've seen them in all sorts of different professions, and I'll go through that today, exactly what it means. Like I said earlier, I'm James Montemagno. I'm a program manager for a .NET community over at Microsoft, so you might have seen me here or there. And you can just Google my name. My name is James Montemagno, and that's me on all socials. I also stream on Twitch on Fridays, and I have a YouTube channel and Twitter and GitHub and all the things that are there. And of course, if you have any questions at any time, just feel free to leave a comment in YouTube, and we'll go ahead and answer those as well. So feel free to post any questions you may have there. I'm just going to double check, make sure everything is good. All right, cool. All right. Well, let's get into it. Some of you may be wondering, well, what is a Stream Deck? Well, I hope everyone that's here maybe has heard of a Stream Deck or perhaps Googled it ahead of time. But a Stream Deck, the best definition I could give you is a macro keyboard with customizable LED buttons. I mean, that's really what it is at the end of the day. It's this device that you see in the bottom right, and often it is used by streamers to control their live streaming setup. Sometimes it's with Twitch Studio or OBS or other different software, but normally it's for that. But it can be really used for anything, because the idea is that it performs actions. So here, even on this Stream Deck, there's buttons that you see for interacting with Twitch or for tweeting, but you can launch applications, you can mute your microphone, you can turn on and off your camera, you can change scenes, you can you can do anything pretty much, but there's a whole bunch of actions that you can perform when clicked, either when you press down on a Stream Deck button or lift up on a Stream Deck button. And as you can see, they're pretty visual too, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that means as far as what you can display on it as a developer. Some of the cool things that it can display that are built in are things such as like CPU usage, viewer count. There's a lot of visual indicators that you have, and as developers, like I said, we have some control over doing that. I said before that it's primarily used by streamers, but not always, not necessarily. I've seen it in a bunch of different use cases, such as video editing, dashboards, music controls. There's a lot of extensions and plugins that people have built for it already, but you can of course build your own, which was what we'll be talking about tonight. And it's really cool to see all the different types of setups that individuals have with their Stream Deck. In fact, on my Stream Deck currently, I can control my lights. I can do all sorts of things like that, and I'll show you that in a demo too. So how's it used? Now you kind of know what it is. Well, I have a little video here, and what we're seeing in the middle is sort of what would be on the screen. So in this case, it's someone playing a video game that's streaming it. And then in the bottom right, we have sort of a kind of a what would be Stream Deck virtually. So I'll play this video. So here, they click a button that says follow me on Twitter. Over here, they're going to play an animation that pops up. Now they're going to mute their microphone, unmute their microphone, and then they're going to put up a DJ Khaled over the screen and kind of control that. So there's a bunch of things that were just sort of shown, right? So we saw that they put an overlay for Twitter. They put an overlay for an action that occurred. They muted their microphone. They did another action. And there's other things that we see on here too, such as different launch icons, different snipping tools, like taking a screenshot of the game. And we'll kind of walk through what some of these other bits and pieces would look like and how they're customizable. But at a high level, if someone was using this while playing a game, they have a lot of control over what's happening on the screen for their viewers. Now, the Stream Deck comes in 3 different models, the Mini, the Classic, and the XL. I have the, I don't know if I can, it's pretty tied up here. Let me see if I have it. I have my setup really nice, of course. I have the Classic. I was going to show it on the stream, but I'll show you that, the virtual version of it. But I have it sitting in front of me basically at all times. I've owned a Mini. I started with a Classic, and now there's the XL. And the big key difference between all of them is the number of keys that are visible. Now, the number of keys doesn't actually matter too much because you can have folders and you can nest folders inside of each other. So you can go down layers, which is kind of neat in the software, and I'll show that off. I recommend the Classic. I think it's way better than the Mini. I like the Mini. It's more of a HUD, a dashboard of what's going on. Sort of, I always want these buttons here at all time. You can have multiple plug into your computer too and control them. The XL is just kind of crazy and ridiculous, but awesome. So there's different price points here. It is fascinating that, we're basically paying $150 for a piece of plastic that has tiny LED buttons on it, but it's amazing because once you start to use it, you really start to integrate it into a bunch of different workflows, like video editing, like doing screen capturing. And sometimes I just even automate the things that I'm doing throughout the day because it is highly customizable. So these are different prices, and these are, I'd say, retail prices between $100 and $250 for the Mini, Classic, and XL. And right now they're starting to come back in stock, I would say, through COVID. They were sold out for a while like everything else, but they're starting to come back in now. Now, another nice thing is that there's actually a mobile version, which is fascinating, but it's a mobile display for Stream Deck. And there's a bunch of other Stream Deck competitors out there too that are free, like mobile apps or desktop apps. But this is nice because this will integrate into the desktop application. It's a virtual display. So if you had your phone sitting side by side your computer, it would be right there. Now, the fascinating part about the mobile version is that it's paid version. It's not free. You just can't get it for free. So they actually have a $3 a month fee. It's $25 a year. But if you do a 1 month sub, you get a month for free. So they'll gift you into that. So if you wanted to play around with it and just kind of check it out, you could use this, for example. So let me just show you what Stream Deck looks like on my computer here and how it sort of works. So I have my Stream Deck locally, but I'm going to pull up the main application. So this is the HUD, if you will, of the Stream Deck. So I'm just going to zoom in here so you can kind of see it really well. And what we see here is that I have a few basically different settings over here on the right-hand side. But what you see in the middle here is my Stream Deck. So I see this. You can see that my CPU usage is being updated in real time. These different controls are specifically linked into OBS, so I don't have it open right now. So this would control my microphone. I could play a 30-second ad on Twitch. Over here, I'm able to change scenes between my webcam, my computer, my Be Right Back screen. Over here is my Twitch account, so I can see all my Twitch specific viewers as I'm streaming live. There's also integrations here for like YouTube. So if I was streaming to YouTube, for Twitter, these are built-in actions, we call them, system actions. So for example, I could launch a website and I could just post in a website and open it up. I can delete this action, so it'll go ahead and delete it. These are all built in. So we can see that there's actually like Twitch Studio, there's Control Center. So for example, here, this is my lights. So I can actually control all of my lights. And if I press this here, it's gonna turn off my lights. As you can see now, my lights are off and now my lights are on. So the icon's updating, it's performing an action and controlling this integration. So this Control Center are my actual key lights that are here. There's Philip Hughes integration. There's all sorts of stuff that you can do, which is really nice. They also have the concept of multi-actions. So here, when I actually tap on this little, kind of multi thing here, we can see when I start my stream, I do a bunch of things. I actually open up an application to play music. I start a countdown timer. I send a message to Twitch. I turn on my desktop audio. I turn off my microphone. I go to my starting soon screen. I go to Twitter and I change my name to say I'm streaming live. I then start streaming and then I do a little delay so I know I'm going. And then I send a tweet as myself of what I'm doing, which is kind of amazing. And when I'm done with my stream, I kind of do the reverse of that. I go in, I go to my thanks for watching. I play some credits that are scrolling down the screen. I can go in and change my Twitter name back and then eventually stop streaming. So you kind of have like all this power and capability right in. You can play audio, stop audio. These integrations and apps are all here. And there's even more actions. So if I go to more actions, it'll actually bring up the kind of, I would call it like it's not really an app store, but it's sort of an app store in a way. But these are built-in actions, which we'd be talking about tonight, or plugins that you can install into Stream Deck. So there's like Philip Hughes, for example. Some of these are made by Elgato, who makes the device. Some of them by third-party companies. There's Streamlabs, there's this, there's World Timer, there's a sound deck, there's voice meters, there's a YouTube ticker, there's things that control nano leafs and 4K capture utilities, and apparently a Visual Studio Code extension. I don't know exactly what it does, something. A stock ticker, which is pretty cool. I mean, so there's all sorts of things that you can put in here. Here's a normal Visual Studio one. I don't even know what that is. That's fascinating. But 8,000 people installed this thing, into their Stream Deck. So this is all by popularity, basically, inside of here. And then there's your own. So like I have one that I've created myself. So one that I created that I've been building live is this little, is another action over here. We'll get rid of this. But I haven't finished it yet, but the idea is it is a utility that I can press, and when I press it, it launches my application called My Stream Timer. And what this does is it does a countdown to a specific time. So when we see a countdown clock at the beginning of streams, this will enable someone to go ahead and launch it. Or if I press it again, you can see it restarted to 5 minutes here. So they don't have to open or worry about the application. They can sort of automate the application through the Stream Deck, which is really kind of astonishing, I think. It's just really, really cool. And we can see here, here's a CPU counter. So there's all sorts of really neat things that are built right into Stream Deck automatically, but also highly extensible at the same time. And there's all sorts of things too. So you can have different brightnesses. You can set a screensaver. That's brand new. There's accounts, so you can link multiple accounts. You can have profiles. So for example, here I can have another profile. And this is my test profile. So I just test a bunch of stuff over here. And you can create new profiles. And if you had multiple devices, they would also show up there too, which is pretty cool. But that's it. This is the software desktop version of it. Let me, here we go. Let me show you what this looks like. Actually have it, can I get it? I have my entire setup way too organized. There we go. Oh, not gonna do it. It's not gonna reach. Oh no. Oh no, what have I done? No, it's just dangling. That's not good. I should have planned this out a little bit better. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, let me turn off this camera and see really quick. Well, let me see. Turn this over. Oops. Okay. So let's see. All right, let's see if I can turn this on here. Let's see if I can tilt this down enough. So there's my Stream Deck. Ba-da-da-da. Pretty cool. So there's all the buttons on it that you can see. Oh, this is cool. I never thought this would work. I bought a cool arm for my computer, and it definitely is working. Cool. So there's my Stream Deck, and you can kind of see it, and you can see all the buttons on it that you saw on the screen specifically before, which is kind of cool. So it's a one-to-one mapping of whatever you're seeing on the Stream Deck is what I'm seeing on my actual Stream Deck, the software and the hardware, which is cool. Let me rotate up my monitor again so I can present. There we go. Cool. All right. Yeah, if you have any questions about the Stream Deck or anything like that, let me know, and I'll definitely answer. Cool. All right. Let me turn that back on. It works. Cool. So it's really neat. I have fallen really in love with the Stream Deck in general, and I think that it sort of helps me through my day, which is really cool, especially when I'm live streaming, obviously. So cool. All right. So now that we know about the actual Stream Deck, what about development? That's kind of the key that we're trying to talk about is how do I develop things for this cool little tiny device? Well, I think what's neat about it is the specific user interface. So if we look at the one action I just added for my stream timer, we can see that there's a few different elements on the screen. The first is specifically a background image and then some text that you can display. So there's sort of two elements here on the screen. And the title is what will be shown, and we have control over specifying that. But then we also have the ability to update and get input from our users for different settings. So here, I'm asking the user to specify the number of minutes they want to launch the application with. And then for the title, they can actually specify what and how that title is displayed, what fonts, what point, if it's in the middle, the color. So they're in control of it. And they can change the background too, but you can set it for them as well. Let's see. Alexander asks, how is it connected to the laptop? That's a good question. It's connected just via USB. So just normal USB is how it's connected. And then if it's the mobile app, it's connected, I think, just over Wi-Fi. Good question. Yeah, there's just a US. That's why I had a hard time taking it out, because it's plugged in through my USB cable all the way down to my computer. So that's how it is. Just normal USB 2.0. Nothing fancy. For Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, nope, nothing's built in unless you were to get the mobile application, and then it would be Wi-Fi. But yeah, the Stream Deck is just built in, just sitting right there. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, good question though. So for the UI elements, so the ones that we have control over right here, there's a bunch of different things that you can do. You can do text entry, you can do a text block, you can do check marks, you can do radio buttons. sliders, lists of data, buttons that you can click. You can have tables with and without selection. You can have a color picker. This is a multi-select, organized, sorted box. And you can have date and time pickers as well. So there's sort of all of these different pickers that you can have built in for them. And you can have multiple actions. So for example, inside of my specific extensions I've been building is I have a few different ones. So down over here, for example, I have a time picker where I can go in and pick a specific time up and down, and I can display that over here, and I can select the number of minutes or AM, PM that's there. Top of the hour, for example, doesn't have any because it's just top of the hour. And then of course, minute countdown over here is the number of minutes. And you can really organize these however you want. So for example, the duration here, like there's a list here of ads. I should probably change that. The computer has scene selection and sources. Twitch has the account drop down that you can do. So you can read data and you can put anything in. It doesn't have to be static, right? If you look at the Twitter message, I have this huge text box here and I select the account. So you can kind of really put a lot of information inside of there. Cool. But yeah, you really have control over all these different UI components, like I said. And you can also make them required or optional or a bunch of different things. Okay, so let's say that you have your UI set up and the user is clicking the buttons and doing the things. Well, how do we display that information? How does it work under the hood? Well, a Stream Deck is just a piece of hardware, right? That's what I showed you when I showed you my camera. It's just hardware. And that communicates directly in the middle here to a Stream Deck app. And that's the desktop app that I showed you. Now, all of your code is being run inside of that application. Okay? That's super important to understand. Your code does not run inside of the Stream Deck. Your code is running inside of the Stream Deck application, which I think is kind of brilliant because you can then use the power of the machine, of whatever's going on, read information about the stream or the machine, integrate well, do things on the device that you couldn't do if you only had access to the Stream Deck. So the Stream Deck app is able to communicate to the Stream Deck hardware to give you different events and display different types of information. And how that works is basically JSON messages between the Stream Deck app and every single plugin that's inside of there. And that JSON messaging is going back and forth with WebSockets to every single plugin, which is very, very fascinating. So it's a peculiar and interesting architecture where plugins are connected to the Stream Deck app that are loaded into the plugins manager. They're communicating back and forth with WebSockets, passing JSON back and forth to the Stream Deck hardware. So it's this really nice sort of management that's going on. So when we write code, you'll see how things are displayed and where the code is written for different pieces of it. Now, inside of a plugin, what we actually care about are a few different pieces of, I would say, required things inside of a plugin. Every plugin has a manifest that is the description of the plugin itself, how many actions are in there, where does the code live, where does the HTML live for the user interface. The property inspector is specifically the JSON or the JavaScript files that will be executed on the Stream Deck. And then assets, so images and other assets that you may have all go into a plugin and are bundled up. And all of them are installed into the plugins folder. So actually, if I hop over here just to my machine, we can see that, let me go ahead and copy this and put this in here. There we go. So there's a bunch of different plugins already installed that come with, which come with it. So all these are plugins already. So here's Twitch Studio, here's a property inspector, here's images, right? So if I wanted to swap these out, I could do whatever I wanted. Here's JSON files for translations. There's manifest. There's a property inspector, which has CSS, HTML, JavaScript inside of here. And there's a tiny index page. I don't think it does anything. Nope, doesn't display anything. I just checked that out and it's all right here. So you can really see what's inside of it. And there's a little, executable that's run and launched and makes this all work together nicely, which I think is super fascinating. Cool. So that's what's inside of it, and that's where they live. So you can easily delete them too. You can just go in and delete them from that roaming data folder if you ever run into problems. That's nice because every Stream Deck is specific per logged in user there too. Now, I also mentioned that there were a lot of events, and you can receive events and you can send events to the Stream Deck to and from. And I put documentation links on the bottom of these, and I'll send out and put in the YouTube page a link to the deck at the end too. But basically, what you receive at the end of the day are events about the Stream Deck and what's happening on the Stream Deck. So key up, key down, if your action is going to appear, if it did appear, or if it disappeared. So for example, if someone went into a folder and yours went away, you could then stop processing. You also have a did received settings. So if someone types something in a box, you will then get that setting back. You can also send events that are sent by you, the developer, are things like setting a setting, getting a setting, opening a URL, setting a title, setting an image, showing an alert. You have the ability to do things to the Stream Deck hardware via these events. And these are all happening over WebSockets back and forth. So you get these events come in. You don't have to worry about the WebSockets. They just happen magically under the hood. The cool thing here is that you actually don't have to buy a Stream Deck to test it out and get things working. There is actually an emulator. There's some links here to Jeff Fritz and people from the community built this emulator. It's all command line that will emulate key button presses. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the most elegant. It's more for testing, but it is totally possible to test things out with actions that you build for the Stream Deck. Now, let's say we want to build some stuff. Well, it's super easy. Right now, if you were to go look at the Elgato documentation, everything is JavaScript and HTML, but we're C# and .NET developers, so we want to do it in C#. So our good friend Jeff Fritz and friends on his stream built a Stream Deck toolkit for C# developers, and this is super cool. It runs on .NET Core as of today, 2.2. I'm sure he'll probably update it at some point, but it's completely open source, and he has an entire template pack as well. So to actually test this out and get it running, you need the Stream Deck software, which gives you like different SDK and capabilities, hopefully probably Stream Deck hardware, and then this toolkit. And the toolkit gives you the template packs that you can install with this command from the .NET command line. And inside of that plugin template, it will also give you all of your NuGets that are required to use it, which is nice. And this is how you get started to create a project. You can just say .NET new Stream Deck plugin. That'll create one for you. Optionally, you can pass in additional command line arguments to that .NET new command. So you can give it a plugin name. You can give it these unique identifiers. So these unique identifiers, every action has one. We'll talk about that in general. And you can say if you want to restore files, not restore NuGets, things like that. I personally am not a command line person, even though I use the command line quite a lot today. I like to create things in the GUI. So I have turned on the feature of Visual Studio, which shows me all of the .NET Core templates in the new project dialog, and it will show up directly inside of Visual Studio, which I think is pretty neat. And that's a preview flag that you can turn on inside of Tools Options. Now, when we create this thing, and we're going to do it, we're going to create a plugin live. This is what Jeff gives you in this template. And this is as of today. He is working on an update to the template pack and some of the NuGets, just because he had stopped it was done, and here it is. But there's been a few pull requests that he's going to be launching soon. But there's quite a lot of things in here, and the things that we need to worry about are like assets, so images that we could put in here. So we can add different 2x variables and different plugin sizes, and those show up in different UI form factors. Over here are models, which we'll talk about. So if I just have data models like a person or a place or a thing or a car or a counter, for example, these are the models. I have my UI, CSS, and HTML, and my JavaScript, I should say, too. And these are the things that are going to be running on the Stream Deck itself. So like what's actually displayed, which is that little HTML sort of thing. And then down over here, we have our manifest. I talked about it earlier, but it's a description of our actions and our entire package. And most importantly, what we'll be executing and managing our code is this additional file called the action. So this specifically is where we're going to write our action code, the things that we want to do and where we get those events where things happen. So let's do it over here. So I'm going to go into Visual Studio over here. And you don't have to use the preview. I just am using the preview because that's where that feature flag is at to show all of the templates. So there we go. So I just have it for demo over here. There's a category called Stream Deck plugins. So once you're over here, you can just filter on that and you'll see the Stream Deck plugin by C# Fritz. Let's go ahead and create that. And for this, let's call it user group plugin. Just call it that and hit create. All right. And this will give us that project structure that we saw earlier. So we have different packages and SDKs. There's actually a bunch of stuff that this thing uses. A little bit too much in my personal opinion, but we have JSON.NET, Serilog, the Stream Deck libraries, WebSockets, we have extensions and a bunch of stuff. We have the images. This is what we saw earlier, models and a property inspector. So JavaScript. And then finally this plugin manifest. Now let's, I'm going to clean up some of these because he's going to eventually update these over here. But let me just first walk through a few important files. I'm just going to open up a few things here, and then we can walk through them as I take this away. So the first thing I want to talk about is the manifest file. Now this manifest file, I'll make it a little bit bigger here. Let's do this, is a description of everything that's in your plugin. So there's actions, so you can have multiple actions, which is cool. And this will give you an image where you want the text alignment to be and the font size by default. This is the name of it that displays basically. The icon, like I said, there's different states. So you can give it different states inside of this. There's just one default state. You can say if it's supported in multi-actions or not. So normally that'll be true, but it's up to you if you want it to be supported in that faction. Here, you can give it a tooltip when people hover over it. And then this unique identifier. So this is it's not necessarily a GUID, but it's a unique identifier. So it could be a GUID. And this is going to be called my company plugin action, default plugin action. And we're actually going to save this. And then there's other stuff. So those are the actions, but there's also just information that when you upload it or install it, this is what it shows. So the SDK version, minimum version, a URL, a description. This is important. This is like where the HTML lives for the application. Now, what's important about that is that you can have a single UI description for all of them, or you can have a UI description for a singular action over here. So I can actually move that property inspector and say, hey, this specific action uses this HTML, which we'll show here in a second. And then finally, you can also say what versions of the operating system do you support, Mac and Windows. And they might have a Linux version. I'm not positive. So that's the manifest. It's a bunch of stuff, basically, that you needed to know. Now, let's talk about that in property inspector. So you can have a global or you can have a specific, one for each action. So it's HTML. If you ever made an HTML website, it's an HTML website. I kid you not. There's some CSS that it can take in so you can style it. And then there's all of these divs. and it specifically points to a JSON or a JavaScript file. So in this default example, it's just going to count whenever I click on the button over here. So inside the documentation, it tells you all how to create those UI elements. So there's an input, there's a name of text counter value, class, what it is, the type, the input, mode, a pattern, a placeholder text, an onChanged event over here, and what to display basically. And what this is going to do is it's going to say whenever this changes in value, call this set setting basically. So if I input it, it'll call that value. And then there's a property inspector too, for JavaScript. And this JavaScript, mostly you don't have to worry about, but this is where the WebSocket is being called and connected to the main application. So this is just JavaScript that when it connects to the WebSocket, it'll initialize the counter. It grabs the counter element and sets it to the setting, which I'll talk about in a second. And here, whenever it is open, it sort of registers the property inspector. So it just kind of stringifies what it needs to display. Whenever it gets a message, it does a bunch of different events here. And this one is specifically setting the value. So whenever I receive a message from the Stream Deck, it'll receive that message. And then there's some other things that I can call like set settings, which you saw over here inside of here. So I can call obviously JavaScript from my property inspector. Now this is important, but it's not super crazy important because what we want to do is write stuff in C#. So this is a counter and it has a counter settings model associated with it, which is a counter. So this could be your person, your place, your accounts, whatever your model is. And in this case, we're going to use it as settings that we save to and from the Stream Deck, which I think is cool. But the big important part here is this action. And this action is defined with the action UUID. And the templates are not correct because it doesn't set it correctly, but we fixed that in a new version. So we're just going to set that here. So this UUID is the same UUID as this UUID. So they match up. So that's how the manifest knows when compiled up that this is how I'm going to execute this code. Because Jeff has sort of done all of this behind the hood for us, which I think is really nice. And he has two different classes over here. One is called a base stream action. And what that gives us is a sort of implementation or a base class for all of the different events that we may get. So we can look at our log. We have a logger. We have an action ID. And we get all of these events. Did we connect to the device? Did we disconnect? Did the key go up? Did we set the parameters change? Will it appear? Will it not appear? Sort of like a UI of a page, which I think is cool. And then we also have this, there we go, a base Stream Deck action with settings model. So if you're using settings, you can basically get a few extra overrides when a setting was set and when a model, when different things occur in the UI. So it's a nice way of saying, this is my model. I want that to be connected to this action and string those together. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this and we can kind of take a look and see what it does. So I am going to actually, let's see if this just compiles first. There we go. I'm just going to run it. Okay. And when I run it, the script is going to close my Stream Deck and then install my plugin. So that actually has happened when I run it. If I go into the properties here, what happens on build is, debug, no, package, build events, there we go, is it calls a PowerShell script that will register my plugin with Stream Deck and does everything for me. So now my plugin over here is installed. It's literally right there. And in fact, if I go over into my folder, in my plugins folder, we will now see that it's also right there, which is kind of cool. So it's all right there. We can go in, we can see the images that are there, and there's Jeff's face and counter backgrounds, things like that. So I can now put this over here, and we can see that the counter value is 0. So it's set that automatically. So if we look at what happened here is when the application appeared, it appeared on it, it set the title. So there's this class called manager, and this manager is giving us a bunch of different actions that we talked about earlier. The manager for every class is enabling us to send different commands, basically. So we can set a setting async, we can get a setting async, we can open a URL async, we can set an image, we can set state, we can do all sorts of different things on the actual Stream Deck itself. Also, we can get notified when we receive settings. So when we do that, we want to update the title when the settings have changed, if we've changed them, basically. And or someone else has changed them, we can update the title. Now, when the key is up, we also get an event, and this code is going to run. It's C#.NET code. So over here, we increment this counter. Remember, our settings model is our counter setting. So this is sort of been implied via that base class. So I have access directly to that counter, which starts at 0, and we'll plus it. I'll update the title when we press on it. And then this logic gives us kind of an example of things that you can do, right? So over here, we can do things such as show an alert asynchronously. An alert pops up on the screen and gives us a little like alert error basically, and OK does a little OK. We can open a URL asynchronously. So if we wanted to launch a web page, we can over here show an OK, or we can even change the image over here, which is nice. And that's what this is doing. It's setting this, and then we're also setting the setting asynchronously. So we're putting it back into the sort of plugin, if you will. So if I pull this up, and as I tap on it, notice that I'm tapping and a bunch of things are updating. The title here, which is updating. So that's going to be the title asynchronously that I basically can set on the screen. And then this inspector value over here, whenever it receives a setting change, it's updating the value down here. So there's two different updates that are occurring. The HTML and JavaScript, and then the C# that's sending a command to update this here. So as I continue to go, there's going to be different actions. So there's Jeff's face that shows up. Eventually, if I go long enough, it will probably launch a website. So there was Bing over here. There's Bing, cool. There's launch right there. And then there's a bunch of other things that are occurring on the screen that you can't see, like a warning sign and other things like that. But it's kind of upgrading automatically, and it's launching those things based on what's happening in this plugin, which is cool. Now, beyond that, let's say we want to do something for real. A good example is right now on my live streams, I'm donating all my profit to a charity that plants trees. So every dollar that's donated is a tree that's planted. So we could maybe change this to enable me to count, add a little clicker here that counts the number of trees that are donated via my stream. And then I could put that out to a file and read that and save that. And we're going to do that all in C#. So first what we'll do is we'll go into our counter setting, and let's just call this trees. Start at 0. We started at 0 here, which is nice. And let us go over to, let me go ahead and take a look over here. Actually, what we want to do is instead of saying trees, we'll use the built-in counter. That's better. What we'll do is we'll use the current counter, but instead of doing trees, we'll say increase amount. Okay. So right now we're increasing by 1, but often when I get a donation, I am donating 2 or 3 trees, so we can increase it there. So we'll create a counter that we have today, but instead of increasing it by 1, we're going to let the user decide how many number they want to increase it by. So we'll do increase first. Okay, so there's our increase. And when I do that, what we should be able to do here is delete a bunch of this logic, get out of here. And instead of saying plus plus, we'll say plus equals setting model dot increase. Okay, there we go. Perfect. We'll set the title, we'll set the setting, so all that stuff is the same there. We're good to go. But we still need to do some things here. So what we'll need to do when we click on it is increase the count, and then we're going to just write a file to disk over here. So I'm going to say var path equals environment dot get folder path, and we'll say special folder dot my documents. There we go. Cool. And then we'll say path equals path dot combine. Let's pull in system IO. So I have full .NET available to me here, which is nice. We'll do .combine. And I'm going to say path, and I'll say tree counter. That's what we're going to build. And then I'll say if my directory dot exists. If it doesn't exist, let's create it. Dot create directory, the path, I get full IntelliSense, everything I'd expect. And then we'll put out a text file. So we'll say path equals path dot, path dot combine, and I'll say path, and I'm going to put out a count. I'll say trees dot txt. Okay. Then all we need to do is say file dot write all text, and over here I'm going to say path, and we'll say let's do like trees planted over here, and we'll say settings model.counter. Okay, let's do that. That looks good. So just written some C#, written some .NET code to get the My Documents folder on the machine, create this new directory, create a path, bingo bango, everything's looking pretty good. Now, if I do this, we have no way of setting this increase. So we're going to need to do that over in our property inspector. So let's go ahead and do that over here. What I'm going to do is kind of copy and paste this. So let's kind of copy and paste this over here. But instead of counter value, we'll say increase value, right? And over here, we'll just kind of copy and paste this increase around. So we're going to call this increase value. Still going to be a number. It's still going to be all the things that we would expect. Number, placeholder, increase, number. And we'll set the setting. So instead of counter, it'll be the increase. So kind of straightforward there. So now we need to make sure that whenever we set this number in our code, or the user does, that the events are being passed back and forth. So we'll go into the JavaScript file next. And there's some JSON that's set over here. So we're going to say increase, just make sure I paste this correctly. 0 is the default. So this is the JSON that gets set back and forth. And now we just need to look for counter stuff. So over here, we can do stuff like copy paste, do increase. Whenever that does, do that. Whenever we get this, we'll do counter, increase. We're going to get the default element, set it to the current increase, which will be 0 by default. Then we will go down here and we'll say if it has the increase, let's go ahead and grab that counter again. If it has the counter setting, let's go ahead and parse that payload, set it into our number, and then we will go ahead and grab that UI element and set the increase. And that's it. That's literally it, because the rest of the payload back and forth works exactly the same as we would expect. So now, if we build this again, what we'll see is that my actual Stream Deck has closed. You can also do .NET Run as well, but I'll reopen it up again. And now, aha. So now we see that we have a counter value and an increase value. And ideally, if this is 0 and I tap on it, I shouldn't get anything. If I get 1 over here, I should now increase by 1 on the screen. I can zoom in here for a little bit for us. There we go. If I make this 5, we can increase, oops, make it 5. There we go. Now I'm increasing by 5 every single time, right? So I've added this new value, saving it to our settings. And if I, do 100, then, I can, or 10, I can increase it by 10 every time, right? So I'm able to do that. But I'm also, like I said earlier, in my documents, I created this tree counter folder, and sure enough, it is now outputting text right here into this file for me. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important because if I open up OBS, for example, my camera should freeze. Let's see if it does. It does, so I'll remove myself from here. You should be able to hear me still. I'm going to, this is OBS. I'm going to turn that off. There we go. And how my OBS is all set up specifically is I have all sorts of different scenes and elements inside of here. I actually have another application that kind of gets COVID statistics and updates them here in the UI for me. And what's cool about OBS is that you can set a text file over here, and you can say read from file. And what's nice about this is that if I go into my documents, tree counter, trees, boom, there it is. And now, whenever I tap on said tree, it has a file watcher that is watching. So now I've created an interactive way of automatically going off and enabling me to press a button to increase this counter that gets updated inside of OBS. And I've written it basically, besides the little tiny UI, all on C# and .NET directly on the Stream Deck, which I think is oh so cool. And I can do that. Now, if I wanted to take it further, right, I could go and I could maybe connect to some API that's reading some different information from my donations, and every time I get one, it automatically increases it. So I could add that types of functionality inside of here, which is really cool. And that's my OBS setup. It's crazy, but you can see it automatically updated it there too. Let me go ahead and turn off and back on my camera. Let's see if that works at all. Boop, nope. And that one. There we go. Cool. That's the one problem with every application taking control of your webcam. So there you have it. I mean, literally just wrote C#.NET logic here, just did all the things that I would normally do. There is some glue, if you will, that you have to do to sort of specify this manifest file and this HTML and JavaScript that's there. And boom, you're off to the races, being able to go off and create your own plugin. And you can go and create more of them. You can just add more of them. You can, create as many of these as you want. As you saw earlier, I have a lot of these plugins have a bunch of different actions that are associated with them that you can continuously add, have different icons, do a bunch of different things. So you have a lot of capabilities there for what you actually want to do. All right, there's my demo. Now, these slides will be available. I'll put them up on my on this code repository, which is Stream Deck-tree count, which is on my GitHub already. And you can find my stream timer, which I've also started doing different Stream Deck integrations there. And of course, you can find all of the different toolkits and documentation at both Elgato, the creator of said Stream Deck, and of course, the Fritz and Friends repositories for both the toolkit and also the Stream Deck emulator. So that's how you build Stream Deck plugins directly with C# and .NET, which I think is oh so cool. And that's it. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but I can definitely answer them directly now, if you will. I know Alexander had a few questions there, and I can definitely go through them. But if not, then that's pretty cool. And yeah, think that's about it. The other thing that we were gonna do, well, if anyone else has questions kind of coming in, is of course this video, once we end the stream, will still be here. So you can go ahead and rewatch this video or send it to other people as well. The other thing that we were gonna do is, if people are around and want to, I'll go on to this Google Meet. So you can come hang out and chat for a little bit. I'll probably go on in a minute or two and let people in. Stay on maybe for 20, 30 minutes if people want to show up. But yeah, again, I don't know if anyone else has any other questions, but I hope that this was entertaining, kind of interesting, and something different that you can do and build. I still haven't figured out yet how to debug my code. Jeff told me today that there's a flag that you can pass in that's like -- break. I've tried it a few times, but I couldn't figure it out really. But I think that it's definitely doable. He's told me so. There's a way to do it, to debug through the logic, since the application is running locally as well. I just haven't figured out how to do it yet. I thought that maybe if I did on debug, do -- break. That's what he told me it was, and then hit it. I just think it wasn't working for me when it actually debugged it. In general, it just throws an exception. So I need to look at it. Maybe I just have an older version and the new templates will fix it, but it's there. How do I use the Stream Deck? You just press buttons. That's all it is. Yeah, so the Stream Deck right here. Yeah, they're just buttons. That's all. That's the only thing that you can do on the Stream Deck is click a button. So whenever I was over here and you see the numbers show up here, all I'm doing is clicking it to make it increase. So I'm not touching anything on the screen at all. I'm just clicking the button. That's the only thing you can do. There's one action, button down and button up, button down and button up. That's it. It's just buttons. Like I said earlier, it is a macro keyboard with customizable LED buttons. That's it. At the end of the day. So that's literally the best description for it. Yeah. Good question though. That's it. And then this GUI, the app, right, is not necessarily representative of what would happen on the Stream Deck, because you're sort of customizing the UI that's being displayed at all time down on the Stream Deck itself. Jeff asks, good question. Let's see. Oh, it's really big. How do I change this? That's better. So Jeff asks, you mentioned the Stream Deck emulator for when you want to emulate a Stream Deck. Yep. If you have a Stream Deck, but you write your own desktop app to control, but you want to write your own desktop app to control the Stream Deck. I don't know. As far as I know, you have to write plugins to control the Stream Deck itself. So I'm bundling it up and running it into the Stream Deck. I don't know to control the Stream Deck, but all of the links that you see here on the screen would be resources for learning how to get the Stream Deck toolkit to build plugins there. But as far as that is controlling the Stream Deck, but there isn't as far as I know, a way to build another application like this that controls said Stream Deck at all. Only Stream Deck has that, whatever magical stuff is in there. Yeah. Alexander asks, can you press any buttons on the laptop? Nope. No, because it's the hardware. It's just the hardware that's there. Yep. There is, like I said, a Stream Deck mobile. You can think of it as like an additional keyboard, if you will, over here that you can press different buttons on. But it's all about automating your flow inside of here with the Stream Deck as you're clicking through them. It's something that it's like kind of hard to describe until you sort of see it. But like, for example, when I'm using it, let me pull up my OBS over here, and I'll probably lose my video again, so I'll turn that off. But So if I'm on this screen, for example, I can press buttons on my Stream Deck to toggle on and off the screen there. I can mute and unmute my microphone inside of OBS. So if I pull this up over here, we'll see I'm muting and unmuting different actions here. And the reason you do this is because you don't want keyboard shortcuts. Like I could put in hotkeys for OBS, but the whole idea is that I'm able to come in and immediately as I'm coding, just tap on a button, or as I'm playing a game, press something on the Stream Deck. I can transition between different scenes. So over here, I'm transitioning between my webcam scene, my computer screen, my Be Right Back screen. I can play ads on it. So that's basically like kind of like the intention of it is to streamline that process of toggling things on and off, or going and writing logic that will display information for the end user inside of the actual Stream Deck. So here, like I'm actually pressing the buttons on the physical Stream Deck here. So that software, if I see here, if I just close it, it's still running in the background. So as I change scenes and I do things, it's calling into the Stream Deck software to make that happen when I press those buttons. But that's what the Stream Deck is. It's just a way to press buttons for all intents and purposes. Yeah. Hopefully if that helps clarify just a little bit more. Let me see if my cam worked. Oh, there we go. Worked again. Cool. Now, one of the other cool things, Jeff, as well, is that when you go to the Elgato Stream Deck developer documentation on here, let's see if that does it. Cool. Yep, this one. So this would be a good overview. There we go. Is when you go into here, there's a bunch of samples. So these are all written inside of different code. This one's written in C++. This one's written in JavaScript. This one is written in JavaScript. Objective-C, this one's written in Objective-C, so it only works on the Mac. This one's written in JavaScript. This one's written in JavaScript as well. But you can kind of get an idea of how the UI and how different bits and pieces are put together. And that's a pretty good one to take a look at as far as like controlling this stuff in general. But yeah. But as I said, the nice thing with the templates is they kind of give you the idea of how to do this, but in C#. Okay, I think that is probably it. I'll put the slide up here again with the docs. Let's see here. Cool. If there's any other questions, let me know. Else, I can answer some questions live. We can go have a discussion over on Google Meet. We can go hang out over there. I'll post a link in the chat here. I think I have to let people in manually. But yeah, we can go head over there. Anyways, thanks for hanging out. My next plan for the next user group meetup would be to do one of the .NET Conf local events. But yeah, I'll just hang on the Google Meet for maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. And then we're going to eat dinner and watch The Bachelorette. And I think that's it. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for the good questions, Jeff. I appreciate it, and Alexander, too. And like I said, these slides and everything will be available on this GitHub right here, the Stream Deck tree count. All right, cool. Thanks, everybody. Hopefully, if you want to hang out, I'll see you in a few seconds over on Google Meet. All right.